Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into Chapter 4 of our source text, which breaks down a truly fascinating spiritual taxonomy, specifically focusing on the various types of evil spirits. You know, we so often think of supernatural entities as things completely separate from us, right? Like monsters hiding under the bed or ghosts haunting some abandoned house. But what if they're actually direct reflections of our own human psychology? Today, we're going to reframe these entities, not as random ghouls out to get us, but as literal mirrors of the human mind. Okay, let's jump right into this core premise. The text argues that these entities aren't just arbitrary monsters. They're actually the negative energy, or as the text calls it, the minus parts, born directly from humanity's own misuse of free will. And honestly, this is a profound shift in perspective. It means we aren't just passive victims in the spiritual ecosystem. We are active participants and, well, sometimes the very creators of the darkness.
So here is our roadmap for the explainer. We'll start with the origins, then run through 4 specific categories: religious, lustful, animal, and vengeful spirits, before finishing up with the ultimate defense, the power of reflection.
All right, Section 1, Origins of Evil Spirits and the Misuse of Freedom. Let's see how the friction of human choices creates these distortions. According to the author, human beings are given this tremendous gift, free will. But when individual freedoms clash, when my desires trample over yours, or when we just prioritize total selfishness over harmony, it creates a deep psychological friction. This clash generates that minus energy, and because the spiritual world operates on a frequency of thought, this energy acts like a massive beacon, attracting like-minded entities right to the human heart. Basically, you don't get haunted by accident. You get haunted because your internal frequency perfectly matches that external shadow. Moving on to Section 2, Religious Spirits, or the Trap of False Relief. Let's look at our first specific category. Now, what's genuinely fascinating about this definition is that these spirits have absolutely nothing to do with genuine, humble faith. Instead, they're defined by a self-centered desperation. These are entities who, even after passing on, are just desperate to escape their suffering. But instead of doing the hard work of looking inward, they just want a magical fix. They want someone else to carry their burden, zero personal responsibility required. The text points out that these spirits will literally flock to groups in the physical world that promise easy, effortless salvation. They absolutely love the idea of just being saved through a quick ritual or paying someone to just pray their problems away. And ultimately, they cause massive disruption within these organizations because their motive isn't spiritual growth at all. It's just selfish escape. Up next is Section 3, Lustful Spirits and the Loss of Reason. The absolutely crucial takeaway here is that these spirits represent a total collapse of human reason in favor of raw, unrestrained instinct. As humans, we're supposed to balance our natural instincts with higher reasoning. But when that balance shatters and someone lives solely for base physical desires, well, their spiritual state warps into what the text classifies as a lustful spirit. The author gives a really relatable modern example for this. He describes how these entities essentially prey on people wandering through neon-lit entertainment districts late at night. When your reason has been dulled, say by alcohol, and your rational guard drops, you suddenly become a perfect, energetic match for these spirits. They're drawn to that lowered inhibition, whispering in your ear, dragging you down to act on that same purely instinctual level. All right, Section 4, Animal Spirits, where emotion completely dominates. Now, while the text does acknowledge that literal animals have spirits, the much deeper point here is about human souls. We're talking about human souls that have completely degenerated into an animalistic state of consciousness. When someone abandons their higher dignity and gets totally consumed by raw, base emotions, things like intense jealousy, cunning vindictiveness, or cruelty, their spirit actually begins to warp into an animalistic form that matches that exact emotion. This just brilliantly highlights the psychological depth of the source material. For example, it explains how a person holding on to intense obsessive jealousy can spiritually morph into the likeness of a snake. The spirit literally takes on the form of the thoughts it harbors. So, an animal spirit possession? Most of the time, it's actually just a human soul vibrating at a severely degraded animalistic frequency. This brings us to Section 5, Vengeful Spirits and the Weight of Grudges. The destructive power here is intense. This category is entirely fueled by hatred and the absolute inability to let a grudge go. But actually, scratch that. The wildest part about this category is that these aren't always deceased entities. The text explains they can actually be living spirits, known as ikiwio in Japanese tradition. That means a living person, someone walking around right now who harbors an intense, burning resentment towards you, can unconsciously project a part of their own spirit to haunt you.
The source explains that holding these kinds of grudges generate incredibly heavy negative thought waves. And if someone is transmitting that level of resentment toward you, it can literally cause physical illness, a sudden feeling of heaviness, or intense unexplained exhaustion. It is a really stark reminder of the actual, tangible power our negative thoughts carry, not just for ourselves, but for the people we focus them on.
So, let's take a breath and look at this summary table. We can clearly link each supernatural entity directly to a relatable human psychological distortion. Religious spirits stem from selfish desires, lustful spirits from the loss of reason, animal spirits from jealousy, and vengeful spirits from deep hatred. The monsters really aren't out there somewhere. They are just amplified versions of the darkness within ourselves.
Finally, Section 6, the power of reflection and cultivating inner light. Let's talk about the solution.
The text establishes a foundational rule, and honestly, it's the ultimate key to this entire explainer. The spiritual realm operates completely on the principle that like attracts like. These spirits are only drawn to us because of our own matching flaws. A vengeful spirit simply cannot attach to a mind filled with forgiveness. A lustful spirit can't attach to a rational, grounded mind. They need an anchor, and we are the ones providing that anchor through our own negative states. Because of that law, the core mindset that acts as a giant magnet for these entities is externalizing responsibility. Whenever we blame others for our unhappiness or our failures, our mind just plunges into darkness. But on the flip side, the mindset that absolutely repels them is taking personal accountability and choosing self-reflection.
The source emphasizes that life is basically a school of trial and error. By practicing honest self-reflection, especially when we're tempted to point the finger at someone else, we change our frequency. By stopping to ask, okay, what could I have done better here? Or where did I go wrong? We fundamentally shift our internal state. We literally stop being an energetic match for the darkness. We pull up the anchor.
The author outlines these concrete steps for spiritual defense. And notice, there are no magical chants here. No complicated rituals, no dramatic Hollywood exorcisms. It is entirely about the hard, disciplined work of self-improvement. Acknowledge your flaws, stop the blame game, and practice daily self-reflection. By doing this, you generate an inner light. As the text so beautifully puts it, you don't actually need to fight the darkness directly. You just need to turn on the light within yourself to blow the darkness away.
It's an incredibly empowering, if maybe slightly daunting message. So we'll leave you with this final thought to ponder. Knowing that your mind is essentially a giant spiritual magnet and that the entities around you are just reflections of your own inner state. Based on your thoughts today, right now, what kind of energy are you attracting? Remember, it is entirely up to you to decide what you draw in. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer, and keep cultivating that inner light.